Simon Cohen. So Simon started his PR company, Global Tolerance, at 24, and has since had what I would describe as quite a diverse range of activities.
An eclectic mix.
There you go. So it'd be great if you could maybe start off by telling people about your journey, like what's brought you to where you are now.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and for all of you for coming tonight, and to Ben and Sam at Canteen, who are great examples of the sort of marketing and communications that I'm really passionate about. My journey, like all of ours, started with an amazing act of strength and courage just under 40 years ago, when my mum, after 9 months of holding me in her womb, growing me, and then through like this immaculate sign of strength and courage and determination, gave birth to me. And I've just had a baby, so this is not, 4 weeks ago, our third daughter, Zena, and so this is very, very present for me at the moment, and particularly as it's the eve of International Women's Day tomorrow, I think it's really important to not brush over this everyday magic and powerhouse that women are, and this everyday miracle that happens, and to honour where all of our journeys start. And so something that's really important to me is to try and hold girls and women in higher esteem, not only because of childbirth and the miraculous thing that is. It's so hardcore. I was the third daughter, and I forgot between the second and the third one. But you're amazing. And being the father of 3 as well. So I just wanted to share that, because that feels like a really important part of my journey, like kind of central to being alive and being here. I studied theology at university. That might be the man upstairs calling. You never know. I didn't actually know what theology meant at all. And I remember being in the careers centre and looking it up in the dictionary, and it was all about studying then the existence and nature of God. And it's like, yeah, I loved RE, so I went for it. But I was a bacon butter eating Friday night going out Jew at the time, so it was never really going to be a vocational course, or so I thought. And then naturally went into the world of media. I remember doing my covering letter, and I did like a mocked up Sun front page with "Sent from Above," trying to link theology and marketing. Bit of a plonker back then, but it worked, and I got a job in a media agency doing planning and buying for a top 10 agency, and it was fantastic. I got very good at Excel spreadsheets. I got sold to a lot, and so I felt like really kind of important. And then after a year there, went onto the sales side, so worked at Northcliffe Newspapers, which is the regional arm of the Daily Mail General Trust, that beacon of tolerance and respect and understanding. And there I kind of ticked all the boxes of conventional success. I became the youngest senior in the company history. I had the company car and expense account, which I duly took the piss out of. I took my mates and my stepdad to the Ivy when, it was just kind of, because that's what everyone did, That's what everyone did. And I wasn't happy. I was earning a lot of money for a 22-year-old, 23-year-old. I wasn't happy at all. And I kind of started dipping my toes in non-profit waters while I was there, just to try and keep a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. And I work really well under a deadline. I don't know if any of you like this. I'm a really good procrastinator. So I decided that the best thing to do was to quit my job, because I had 30 days notice. So that's like a really good deadline to try and work out my life. I didn't have any savings. I had 200 quid left of my overdraft limit. And so I quit my job. And within those 30 days, Global Tolerance sprung up. I couldn't call it international because you need a special permit or permission for that. And so I call it Global Tolerance. And ultimately, on a very personal level, it was an effort to try and align my sense of self with how I was behaving. So I've always thought of myself as quite a decent person, and I would be the person that my friends and family would come to for moral guidance. And yet I was selling stuff to people that they didn't need. I wasn't happy. I was misappropriating an expense account, or another word is stealing. And so my actions weren't in harmony with my perception of myself. And so I wanted to create a culture, a company, an environment where everyone had, including myself, had permission to be wholly themselves and to celebrate that, not just before 9 a.m. and after, not just between 9 and 5, but the whole day, celebrate the whole human being. And that was the solid foundation. And then I just kind of made it up as I went along. My ex-girlfriend was in PR. I never had any PR background at all. She spoke a lot, I listened. And,
classic PR.
Yeah, and I had a fairly solid media grounding, and it made sense because of my my background, but also 9/11 happened when I was at the media at Northcliffe, and the way in which at the time 1.2 billion Muslims were tarred with a terrorist brush the days after 9/11, and I read the Quran at the university and fallen in love with its poetry and its meaning and its dignity, and thought, what the hell is going on, and how can the media be used as a tool to spread solutions and hope rather than spread problems and fear. And so there was the personal, let's buy back a bit of soul time and align thoughts, words and deeds. There was the social side of things of, hang on a second here, these religious and spiritual communities are getting dragged through the mud here, and there's a lot of positivity there. And there's also a commercial opportunity, because there was no one else doing that at the time, in terms of acting in that space between the media and spirituality. And so Global Tolerance operated in that space for the first 4 or 5 years, and ended up working with some incredible people like the Dalai Lama and Gandhi's grandson and Desmond Tutu and Archbishop of Canterbury and all kinds of cool cats. And that was great, except for the fact I was a bacon butt eating Friday night going out Jew. So while I really respected the role and relevance of faith communities and the role that they could have in life, I didn't see the work of a cancer charity or a tech for good firm as any less important. And so I wasn't really extracting a huge amount of joy from that, because I realized that the brand and our mission, our focus, only reflected a part of my passion and my purpose. And it needed to be all of that, including the people that I work with as well. And so we expanded it to work with all individuals and organizations committed to positive social change. And we had a whole kind of checklist of what exactly that meant and who we would work with and who we wouldn't work with. And that became really exciting. So then we would work with the Gallup organization. We'd work with Wallace and Gromit. We worked with TED and the TED Prize, and all kind, as well as the Living Buddhas and like 13-year-old environmentalist called Felix Finkbeiner, an actual superhero. He sounds like it, doesn't it? He decided at the age of 9, inspired by Wangari Maathai, to plant 1 million trees in every country of the world. Because why wouldn't you? You're 9. What else are you going to do? And that was all amazing, and did that for about 10 years. And then, so I was working in India with His Holiness the Karmapa, whom I'm still privileged to work with. And I was in India and about to fly direct to Uganda to work with the US Department of State to host a youth conference. And I was feeling, yeah, this is so cool, jet setting, spreading global tolerance. Look at me. And Kate, my wife, was pregnant with our first daughter, and I was on the way to the airport, and we stopped off at a temple, and I heard a story from Indian mythology, a Hindu story that completely rocked me. So if I may share it briefly with you. Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati have got a sacred fruit from the gods, and it's a magic mango. And both their sons, the elephant-headed deity Ganesha and Skanda, who's long and lithe and handsome, they both desperately want this fruit. And for the parents among you, you will know this pain. And so the parents think, they're thinking on their feet, they think creatively and think, okay, the best way to resolve this child dispute is to create a game out of it. So they say, whoever goes around the globe 3 times and returns first wins the fruit. So Skanda, who's all handsome, and he gets on his magic peacock and flies majestically off around the world. And the elephant-headed deity Ganesha, he looks at his vehicle, a mouse, and pauses to reflect. After a while, and with a lot of devotion and caution, he mounts his magic mouse and approaches his parents and begins to circle them. Ganesh, what are you doing? Say his parents. My parents, Ganesh responds, you are the whole world to me. He wins the fruit. So I heard this story, and at the time that I heard it, I realized that I was no longer Simon Cohen, founder and managing director of Global Tolerance, spreading peace and love around the world. I was Skanda, about to jump on my magic peacock yet again and miss the whole world in my pregnant wife's embrace. And that's when I realized that I completely missed the trick. I got carried away with the kind of company vision and all of that. My approach to how change happened was very much outside in, sort the world out, and my own health and well-being and those of my loved ones and family and friends, they'll come later, rather than inside out. And so I made the decision to put the whole company on a 1-year sabbatical, which is an HR bloody nightmare. But we managed it. So we put the whole company, which at the time was 7 full-time staff, 75 consultants in 25 countries, 6 board of directors, 10 board of advisors. So we put it on sabbatical for a year. During that year, Seren was born. And it was like, that's what it's all about. Okay, awesome. During that time, and I was feeling quite reflective, being on sabbatical, having a baby. I was also doing Pause for Thought on the Chris Evans breakfast show. It was Chris Evans at the time. And so I had every single week being asked, what do you think about things? So I thought about sitting here, we just moved to Cornwall as well, on a cliff edge, you know, in that kind of lucid baby phase, not having much sleep, thinking about what do I think about the world. Desmond Tutu had just passed away. And one of the things that, and we all of the contributors had to write a script before he died about Desmond Tutu dying, just in case we were the contributor the next day, so that we could give a radio address. And one of the things, and the thing that I focused on in terms of his legacy, is that he subverted himself to a higher calling. He believed in South Africa and what South Africa meant more than he believed in his own sense of power. And they're completely swimming against the tide of what a lot of African rulers in that region had been like, and are still like, in terms of clinging to power. And he stepped down, according to his promise, in order for South Africa to thrive. And I thought, that was so awesome. And so I also had just had a baby and thought, at one time, there's going to be a time where Seren will be at the university gates, hopefully, and I will need to let her go. Just as my mum was, I remember I was at Nottingham and she was driving off wailing. Oh! She gave me a little card with a pretend umbilical cord in. She's like, here it is, I release you. And I was just thinking, there's going to be a moment where I will need to release my daughter, and that is the truest expression of love, is to really let go and not have this sense of ownership, but a sense of stewardship. And that's where the idea of giving away the company came from. So I set up a new exit strategy called an open leadership exercise, or OLE for short, which is a big global search process. And ended up giving away the company. And that was 5 years ago now. And now I'm here.
We said it was eclectic.